Mother Teresa once said, "Do you want to do something beautiful? This is your chance, and it is today. And I hope you make the most of today." Let me show you what I'm talking about and start with why we have this conference. Because we do believe that hope can change everything. Hope can transform your life, and hope can last you a lifetime and beyond. This is not about us, it's about you, the patient, the caregiver, people who want to truly make a difference. It's your need that we're addressing here. Today, we have a set of options for you. We have the plenary session, like this one. We have the breakout session, where you will learn specific topics that are not discussed in the offices of doctors. Questions that are not often asked, and you will be amazed of your choices. I assure you, you will learn. We want to address your needs, so we brought in support groups, we brought in patients, specialists, and caregivers, all in one room, so that you can talk together, interact, and be inspired. We're not talking about you just getting that knowledge. We're talking about you imparting this knowledge to somebody else, your loved ones, your friends, your neighbors. A 20-minute lecture, case-based if possible, are the plenary sessions. We want you to hope, not just hope, but believe that there is hope. There's a difference between believing and just hoping without knowing where you're going. There's always hope with a direction, with a focus, with an aim. I told you about support groups. We want you, as patients and caregivers, to tell your stories. I assure you, you'll have the time, not the whole day, 5 minutes. We want you to focus your energy on people, on experiences versus things and material. That's why I didn't give you handouts. You can write what information is important to you, because I don't know what's important to you. You know your needs. Take time to daydream, anywhere from 5 minutes to as long as you need, because that way we can change our world and help others. Breakout session. We will give you some handouts if possible. Make a list of things and experiences that you have in your lifetime. Set priorities. Create specific, measurable, realistic, time-oriented goals to achieve your priority. Not just your priority. I do believe that we are created with a purpose, and fulfill that dream that you were created for. And you will never be stoppable. This is the rainbow. And these are people here who are like you, who want to share their lives with you because they know you have needs. Their needs were met. I have Miriam here. I have Sandy. They care for you. Miriam, could you tell your story about your experiences, and hopefully this story can help you.
Good morning. 5 minutes, I thought you told me I had all day.
At the end of the meeting.
At the end of the meeting. I was diagnosed in 2009 with double cancer. My first cancer was melanoma, and when they did the workups for the melanoma, they found a neuroendocrine tumor on the pancreas that had already metastasized to the liver. I was 55. I had my whole life, and that was not what I was expecting. Dr. Tan and my family, my sister Sandy, who I call her, she's my crusty old nurse practitioner. Let me tell you, she quit her job and came to live with me for 14 months. And we only had to go to separate corners twice in the entire 14 months. We hadn't lived together in years. My treatment, we went after the melanoma. It was non-sun melanoma that started in my little toe and had metastasized up to the lymph nodes in my right leg. And I did 12 months of interferon alpha. The first months with every day, I had chemo every day for the first month. For the next 11 months, I had chemo 3 days a week. And I can tell you that, it will bring you to your knees. And you get your, you get your life in order, if it's not. But I would go in to see Dr. Tan, and I was really dragging. And Dr. Tan knows that I love to travel, and he'd say, "When's your next trip?" And I'd look at him like, "You gotta be kidding me. I can't even get out of the chair and you want me to travel." And he looked at me and he went, "Plan your next trip. Get it moving, get it going, get going. Do not change your life because of a diagnosis of cancer. You live with it, you deal with it, and you move on with your life. It is not a sentence that makes you sit home and stay in that rocking chair." And so I decided that, okay, I'd travel with the chemo, with the hypodermic needles in the wheelchair, and with just a plethora of letters from Mayo because, I would fly places. And it gave me the energy and the hope that this diagnosis is not a death sentence. Sure felt like it at times, but it just was not. And I could look back on that year of interferon alpha, and I can tell you that it was my year of blessings, not only for the drug, but for the people I met, for the support that I received at Mayo. For you see, Mayo was where I went for my second opinion. The first hospital I went to didn't even diagnose me with cancer. They diagnosed me with a sore on my toe. So the support that I received at Mayo from the day I walked through that door until today, because I go in every month now for a shot, the support there from that person at that desk when I check in, to when I go through on the blood pressure, to I go through back into the treatment rooms, it has always been, "How are you doing?" And it's a sincere question. That they want to know what you're doing. And there's been a couple of times when, through the years, it's like, oh, it's just tough. And it's like, well, let's sit down and talk about why it's so tough. I mean, they just stopped what they were doing and took the time they needed to give me what I needed. And I never consider myself a needy person, but as many of you know out there, you do a lot of leaning on people because that's how you get through it. I'm sorry, Dr. Tan, he's going to give me a lecture at his next office call. But the year of blessing is what I call that entire 12 months of the chemo. And now I'm in for a shot every month for the neuroendocrine tumor that is on the pancreas that's metastasized to the liver. and that's given me great results and a great life. But never once did Dr. Tan or the team of Mayo ever tell me it's time to sit home. I mean, they encouraged me to travel. I travel with my sister, my aunt who is here today. We have traveled around the world, but you travel with drugs, and you do what you need to do. And this is a quick story. I'm on a monthly shot. I said, well, Dr. Tan, what if I can't get into the office every month? What if I'm out, traveling? He looked at me very serious, very serious. He said, Miriam, airplanes fly into Jacksonville every day of every hour. And you will come in and you will get your shot and you will fly back out, but you will get that shot every 30 days. But that's the love and the support that I have received from Mayo. It's a concern. It's not, well, you can just come in when you get home. No, that's not good enough. You will be here. You will get it. You will do it. And you can move on with your life and continue what you were doing. But it changes your perspective, or it has changed my perspective on life. It has shown me what's important versus what's just not so important or was once important. I went through my year of chemo. I promised myself that I would work one more year and then I would retire. Whatever that meant, that I was going to live life and life was not going to be my work. And so I came out of my professional environment and retired early, worked hard to put the body back together again, strong, and now I get to see Dr. Tan just once a month instead of 3 and 4 times a week. Thank you, Dr. Tan.
Thank you, Miriam. As a caregiver, Sandy, what could you say about your sister and how people in general can help the cancer patient or their relative that have cancer?
Well, thank you for inviting me today, Dr. Tan. I have been a nurse and a nurse practitioner my entire life, and I have done a variety of nursing. And so you might say, okay, here's a person who's going to do okay with this. I've done home care, I've done palliative care, I've done hospice. It's different when it's your loved one. And I've learned some incredibly valuable lessons about both myself and what I, as a nurse, may have taken for granted or had assumed, because it's 24/7. For most of us, our time with whomever is very short, and we may keep that person in mind, and we may ponder the what ifs, but the day in and the day out of 24/7 is grueling. And I think one only appreciates that when one goes through that. I came with the ability to seek knowledge and to do all the web searches that one could do, to pick Dr. Tan's brain about this and that. But I must tell you that at the end of that first phase, I stopped. And what I learned was I needed to just stay in the moment, and I needed to be present to my sister as best I knew how to do that. And that I needed to trust the caregiving team and ask my questions there, but to not get bogged down in the what ifs, or not get bogged down in the whys, or not get too bogged down in what are we going to do next. Staying in the moment is really difficult, and I am humbled by that ability. The other thing I think is really an important lesson for me was that this life was my sister's life and is my sister's life. It's not my life. There were things that she did that I would not have recommended or was really upset that she was doing. But it wasn't for me to make those choices. It was for me to honor what was going to fill her life and bring it meaning. I flew in from here. I was actually in San Francisco, and I was doing home care. And I thought, this is really pretty screwy. I'm out here taking care of very ill people, and my sister has a very complicated diagnosis, and I am afraid she's going to die. And can I live with that happening and not me being a part of that and doing all that I could to be a part of that? Not everybody has the luxury of the decision that I made, and I am forever grateful that I was able to do that. And I honor the complexities of people's lives, but it is by far the most sacred period of time that I could have ever asked for. A couple of things about Mayo that were really, I think, important for me to mention. One is, I had a problem with some provision of care that was provided at Mayo. And part of the measure of a system is how well they respond to a concern. This was a really minor issue. It had to do with a nurse's behavior toward my sister. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't going to change care. But at the moment, I was really upset about how that nurse handled my sister in a procedural way. So I decided I was going to write a letter, and I was going to send it to, I gave it to Dr. Tan, and I went and I spoke with the charge nurse or nurse manager or whatever. And I must tell you that that was a very important thing for me, because my concern was really respected and it was really listened to. I really urge people who are caregivers that if you have concerns about the kinds of things that are going on, it is really important to raise the question with a trusted person on your care team. And it doesn't matter how small or foolish it may seem to you, it's really important to let them know that you've got a concern. The other thing that I think is important for me as a caregiver is I didn't need to understand what was going on with my sister in some ways. I knew what to look for. I worked really hard on issues related to nutrition and activity and all of that. But I needed to know how to get a hold of people. I needed to know that if I called, somebody would call me back. That is not to be taken for granted these days. And those phone calls are really, really important. I, to this day, carry Mayo's card with all their phone numbers on it in case something happens and I need to get a hold of somebody. I was with my sister for 14 months. I arranged with Dr. Tan and with Jennifer and Cheryl, the nurse practitioners who are part of his team, that I am conference called in on every visit. And so they have an opportunity to have their private time, but I also have an opportunity to have the time to listen in on what the results of the work lab is, what the results of the scans are, and that kind of thing. So I remain really involved in this because I now live in Massachusetts. And so that is the way that I stay in touch. The only other thing, I wrote a note here to myself. The only other thing I want to mention as a caregiver is it's really hard to accept others' help. There's a lot of different ways that people can help. My sister is a strong extrovert. She has a lot of friends. I'm a strong introvert. I don't want to deal with all her friends. We did, in those days, we did the Caring Bridge thing, so I could write it for her, or she wrote it. I didn't have to talk to all those people, but I had 5 people. My 2 aunts, my other sister, 2 close friends of mine, and I was in touch with them regularly. So I think it's really important as a caregiver to find your circle that's separate from anyone else.
And could I add something to that, Dr. Tan? It's really important as a caregiver, and I share this with people who I help that have recently had a diagnosis of cancer. We sat down very early on because caregiving, I think, is tougher than the person going through treatment. We sat down and worked her schedule so that every 2 months she would leave for 2 weeks. I didn't care where she went. I didn't want to know about it. But the caregiver needs that break because all of the emphasis is on the patient. And so what we did was we sat down, worked a schedule, and during that time when she wasn't with me at my house, my aunt, who was in the audience this morning, Mjolin Kautstall, my dear friends, would come in. But it's important, it's so vitally important for that caregiver to take a break because it's pretty intense. And that patient doesn't realize how intense it is until they step back because it's tough taking care of us sick people. And so we sat down and worked that schedule to make sure that her mental health was just as good so that she could take care of me. In addition to my cancer, our younger sister at month 6 was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she lives in Massachusetts. So Sandy had a tough decision which sister she was going to support, and I say she supported the right sister.
I hope you learned something from them.